Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about the Fist of the North Star collab that is coming back to North America this Monday for Puzzle & Dragons. So, the Fist of the North Star collab has not been seen for several years, and as a result of all this backlog, all the cards have received numerous buffs to their kits, maybe new evolutions or even changes to how they actually perform and function, and it tries to make them more relevant, and it has given us the superstar leader of Raoh, and he is the premier fire farming leader, just fire leader in general. He's just amazing in all aspects because he has the built-up follow-up damage and can build a system-based team that can tackle and clear all endgame content. But of that being said, this collab itself features many lackluster cards. Like, despite the fact that all the cards did receive buffs, many of the 5-star cards are just languishing in redundancy almost. Like, they don't actually accomplish anything that, like, so many different options can surpass what they can bring. And the fact that it is a 5-star machine means the rolling rates are going to be quite bad. At the same time, it means you're most likely going to roll those 5 stars, which you don't really want to have. So that is definitely problematic. They don't have weapon assist, they have low weighted stats, and most of them are just going to be kind of just box cheerleaders, especially if you don't actually play in co-op mode, where a lot of the more stronger cards shine bright in. With that being said, if you can somehow get 4 of them, you can build a system. He's just amazing all around, and is basically, it should be just called his collab. Like, he is the main star for powerful cards for Puzzle & Dragons. So, for the 7-star cards, they all can be acquired through the Monster Exchange system, but they will cost you 5 instead of 4 trade fodder compared to other 5-star events because they are 7-star rarity within a 5-star machine. This is something similar to what we saw in the Hello Kitty collab with Zila Kitty, so this shouldn't be too much of a surprise, but they did definitely change things around, so it's a bit harder to acquire these top rarity cards. So Raoh in his base form is actually still a reasonably strong card, especially for his own team. He has 100% blind resist, he has Rose, he has that nice 7-turn haste fire generating active skill, but the thing is, his weapon assist is actually pretty strong, especially for his own team, and his evolve form is just too good to really pass up on. So it comes down to, yes, you are a strong card, but you have much stronger forms available. So his evolve form features the same active skill of changing heals and all hazards into fire, and then 1-turn haste. In addition to that, you give 4 times health if they have dark and fire. So if they have dark color as one of their attributes, so cards like himself provide that extra health bonus. That can be a bit of a drawback because if you don't have enough cards with the dark attribute, you may or may not meet the health thresholds required for the certain dungeon you're playing through. Again, just tinker and test around in endless corridors beforehand. But in addition to that, you can get up to 306.25 times attack damage when you match 6 or more connected fire orbs. So this counts as a row. It also will be fulfilled with a VDP. So this is pretty high explosive damage for the most part. And you also have that built-in follow-up damage of 50,000. So you basically get to cancel out all resolve spawns because you have that built-in follow-up damage. And it just makes them so powerful, and that's one reason why you see things like Ina being such a dominating leader, because you cancel out one of the more annoying mechanics, especially when it's paired with other things like voids or spinners or other things that you don't want to deal with. And countering out completely through a leader skill is basically kind of the future of how Pad is going to go. But unlike Ina, Raoh can actually form a system-style team, and I'll explain a bit more what the system does and includes, as well as how you can truly abuse it potentially. You also can pair with other things like the Nakororu from the current Shaman King collab, or Samurai Showdown, goodness gracious, Samurai Showdown collab, and it is a 7x6 leader pairing. It gives you some options there as well, and it is worth monster exchanging for if you are able to actually field a reasonable team for him. At the same time, in terms of drawbacks, is that you only get health for dark cards, and you have no natural damage reduction unless you have alternative pairings. And that does leave you a bit vulnerable to the gravity plus hit combo, but you can probably kill most things anyways. So it's definitely going to be his most popular and powerful form, and the several reasons why it's so strong is that he has that built-in follow-up damage, which I've stressed is such a powerful mechanic, but he can form a system. And a system is a series of active skills that will be used over the course of several different turns, and they provide some sort of benefit, but at the same time they also provide haste, which basically charges up all other active skills by 1. So if you are able to have 4 cards with a 7 turn or less cooldown with haste, you can create a system, which means you can use 1 active every single turn. And this is valuable because you are able to actually have fire orbs present all the time, which means you can kill every given floor repeatedly. And it just makes clear times much faster, it makes things more consistent, makes things safer because you don't have to dance around and deal with mechanics. And Raoh's base active skill fulfills that requirements for a system, so you definitely could, in theory, populate his team. And you can use things like Antares, Nidhogg, Squall, and dupes of himself as some examples for completing this haste system. But you can further abuse it by actually utilizing a single Kuroyuri. One Kuroyuri amongst all of this haste will be able to loop their active skill all the time. So now you have 40% healing all the time. You don't have to dedicate 1, not 2 sub-slots. And you also solve the whole healing issue, which would have cost a sub-slot anyways. So this is making your life even easier. But at the same time, you can actually take advantage of combo orb awakenings. So up until this point in time, combo orbs, in my opinion, have been lackluster. They've been difficult to utilize because they require 10 to 12 matched orbs. And that's just incredibly orb hungry. It's not feasible on most given boards, and it's just not going to really happen. But if you are able to create a system team and find combo orbs somewhere around, you have the potential chance to even utilize this because with an active skill generating fire orbs every single turn, it shouldn't be too unlikely that you're actually able to have a match of 10 or more. And that will allow you to have combo orbs so you can have basically bonus combo count for subsequent floors. It's not something you have to do, but it's just something to keep in the back of your mind that it is possible. And another thing to keep in mind with his team composition and the inclusion of Kuroyuri is poison and jammer orbs possibly are much less dangerous because if you have duplicates of Raoh himself, you actually have an active that can remove those hazards, which will then in turn become fodder for more fire orbs, which means more damage. And that means your inherits can then, instead of focusing on poison and jammer, focus on more rows or more enhanced orbs, or even combo orbs for that matter, to basically ease your clears through difficult content. You just have lots of options when you're able to actually form this system in terms of the awakening setups you want to bring and how much supplemental damage you can have, because you can potentially deal significant amounts of damage with a single row that would normally not kill if you're able to bring the weapon assists that provide this passive damage for the entire team. And his own weapon assist at the same note has value because it provides 40% blind, which is arguably the most valuable resist to have, and 2 fire rows along with a poison and jammer. So 4 resists is definitely on the stronger end for weapon assist, but mixing defensive resists, relevant defensive resists, along with offensive awakenings is kind of the future for weapon assist. We will need to have some defensive awakenings on our weapon assist, but when they mix themselves with offensive capabilities, along with having a relevant active skill for the team, it just makes them a step above. And again, the biggest problem is it comes from the same card that you need lots of anyways to create a system. It's just like all the good stuff is put into a single card. And now the collab is really just going to go downhill from here. There are still some useful cards, but nothing is going to be anywhere near as spectacular by comparison. So the second 7-star card in this collab is Kenshiro. And in their base form, they have 100% jammer resist, which, it sounds nice, but the thing is, I've said it before, jammer resist is, in my opinion, the least dangerous metric overall, or mechanic, because you can match them away and you don't take damage like poison orbs. You can still see the board, you can still combo, you can orb change, that sort of idea. So it's not as dangerous. So resisting it completely is nice, but it's not something I actively pursue. So you now have to think, well, I'm vulnerable to binds and I have just 3 TPA. I'm not really that special of a card. And in all honesty, you want to look at their evolve form or their weapon assist. So for their evolve form, they still share this kind of awkward active skill. It's 100% defense break, increase orb movement time by 7 seconds, and then enhance all orbs. You do a bit of everything, but it's kind of a long cooldown. It's kind of an awkward spot. It's like not super short, but it's also not super long. It doesn't quite do as much as you really want it to do. It's just an active. It's just not that magical in my opinion. In terms of the leader's skill, they have to be above 50% health, and they're basically like an Edward style team, which was good when it first came out, but this type of damage reduction clause for your attack multiplier as well is problematic because once you drop below 50% health, unless you have a built-in self-heal, which he doesn't, you aren't going to be able to return your health back up. and you'll never actually be able to kill a spawn because most of your damage is tied to being above 50% health. You'll get the damage reduction again, but you'll still be stuck in that same cycle of I can't proceed because I don't get my full multiplier because I keep getting damaged. And in addition to that, any multi-hit will basically shred your team. The first hit, maybe the second hit will get damage reduced, and then any subsequent hit will probably just execute you because at that point you have no effective health. So just an awkward leader skill, in my opinion, at this point in time especially. It would have been good maybe a year or two ago for sure. But in terms of the awakenings, they have 777 combo and the ability to gain, and 2 attack roll above 80% awakenings. This does transition into 18 times personal damage, and that's huge. This works against every spawn, but you have to be above 80%, which is not always possible. But another big drawback is that they have no VDP. So a card does not need to have VDP to truly succeed, but when 5 of your 9 awakenings are dedicated to offensive capabilities, it's probably important that you want to have a VDP so they actually contribute something against those void spawns. And because they don't, they will be doing nothing against void spawns. They'll be kind of just a dead weight sub. You can bring utility-based cards, things that say provide many enhanced heal orbs, because you need that healing aspect. You don't expect them to deal damage. So they are providing something because they're providing some sort of metric value, whereas Kenshiro won't be providing any value. And the thing is, almost all of the hard spawns nowadays have void. So if you're a damaged stick that doesn't kill void spawns, it's a bit problematic, it's counterintuitive, and it just makes them less appealing as a sub overall. Furthermore, coupling that with the active skill that does a bit of everything but nothing truly great makes it unfortunate. Thankfully, their weapon assist is quite strong. Like I said, 4 resists with double poison, a single blind, and a jammer is meaningful. It's much easier to actually accomplish 100% resistance, but they don't have any offensive capabilities alongside of it like Raoh's weapon does. And the only major good point aside from 4 resists is that they have a 20-turn cooldown. And with a 20-turn cooldown, it's quite difficult for it to accidentally charge up. You're able to actually just retain your base active skill, and it's basically just a sexier Trojan horse overall. The next and final 7-star card in this event is a person whose name I can't quite pronounce, and in their base form, they are a premier farming leader for medium to easy difficult content. The idea is that you have no Skyfalls and an unconditional 8 times attack for dark cards, and then you have 100 times attack as follow-up damage when matching orbs. This is not true damage like Raoh, so if the spawn has tremendously high amounts of defense, you won't actually kill it after popping Resolve, so just make sure the spawn in question doesn't have it, and then you basically just one combo your way to victory with no Skyfalls, and basically farm a dungeon very fast. Is it relevant to every player? Not necessarily. It's most likely going to be only for co-op based play when you have more skill boosts and you just basically kind of system or just active skill every single turn. But hey, maybe something else would come up, but it's not really applicable any other way. And if that's not of interest to you, their evolve form might hold some merit because they still have the same active skill of changing the far 2 columns to dark orbs, so 10 dark orbs potentially. And they basically play like a beach Raoh in the sense that when you match 9 or more connected dark orbs, you get bonus combos and the same 324 times multiplier. The multiplier is the same, but Beach Raoh has 4 times health instead of 2.25 times health and recovery. I prefer to have 4 times health as opposed to this split because this split can't survive the largest preemptives. 4 times health can. You can find ways to heal back up anyways, and 2.25 times is okay, but it may not always be enough. So 4 times health is really the way to go. So Beach Raoh wins out in that way. They have a shorter base cooldown, which can make it a little easier. They will flood the board and guarantee you have activation. I guess KO on this individual as well. But another big issue is they only provide +2, not +3 combos when matching 3x3 or matching 9 connected orbs. So your 1 combo becomes 5, not 7. So combo shields might still be a bit of a problem. And at the same time, because you're losing out those 2 additional combos, you are dealing less damage because each additionally matched combo provides more. So they're basically just a weaker Beach Raoh, which might be appealing to some players. I don't know how it would turn out in all honesty because it's just weaker overall, and in all honesty, dark is usually dominated by Phenomena, but this could be something I'm wrong about. And now we come to the 6-star base cards, and the first one is Toki, and both forms have this pretty powerful active skill. For 1 turn, you reduce all damage taken by 100%, which is nice. It's an emergency button. Remove all binds, and then reduce unable to match orb effects by 5 turns. So imagine you're playing through 3-player Arena 2 and you encounter Evolved Gaia. She prevents you from matching either fire, water, or wood for 3 turns. And you're playing one of those teams. That could be lethal. With Toki's active skill, you're able to cancel that mechanic out by 5 turns. It can be invaluable under the right circumstances, but at this point in time, it's still a reasonably rare mechanic, but also it is a reasonably rare active skill to have. So at this point in time, it is pretty unique, so to speak, so it does give it a little bit more value there. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually remove Awoken binds, which are really the most important binds because most things nowadays are fully bind immune. So regular binds are less important. Of course, it might work out in some point, but it's just less of a priority, especially when you can just have that security through Awakenings. It's not worth it dedicating a whole active skill. So it is a little bit of a drawback. In terms of the leader skill, they have strong multipliers on paper, but you have to only use healer and attacker types, so you're restricted there. And it's quite orb hungry. And the thing is, it's just going to be a little bit difficult to build around it. You might have difficulty keeping alive. Remember, 2.25 times health is not that high, and there's no recovery multiplier, so just staying alive will be difficult. And their Awakenings, they do a bit of everything, but not really much of anything truly relevant. The soft bind clear was great 3+ years ago when things were not always bind immune, but nowadays it's just become kind of a useless Awakening, which I think needs a rework. But aside from that, there are easier to use water leaders, so there is a possibility that it may just not actually surpass your current options. By comparison, the Revolve form will be a bit much easier to team build for, and they have better multipliers all around, in my opinion. So they get 3 times attack and increase combo count by 1, so +2 of dual leaders when matching 4 or more connected light and water orbs. So you're kind of like a Yusuke that needs to TPA, which does have synergy with their Awakening, so they will be providing meaningful damage. But you also have the built-in combo count, so it's going to be much easier to actually overcome combo shields. And you don't actually have a hard combo requirement for their leader skill, which can be advantageous because 324 times always happens. But the bonus combo count definitely can help, so you could definitely populate with 7 combo subs. And the main drawback of this leader skill as well, you need 2 colors, so it's a bit more restrictive in terms of the types of active skills you can bring. And their active skill is redundant with 2 leaders. You don't want this active skill more than once in a dungeon. It's very rare you ever would, and even then it's a pretty niche active skill. So having 2 leaders with a 13-turn cooldown is definitely going to hold them back, and it's just not going to be as powerful as other options. Like, I know it sounds terrible, but we are getting to the point where Pad is becoming a min-max style game where it's like, we do have useful cards that could clear content, but at the same time, people are going to look at them and think, it's not really going to be what's going to help me out. It's not going to take my box to the next level. So I think that's a bit of an issue, but that's kind of a whole new topic for another video. But just be aware that you must match water and light, and you have to match 4 and 4. So there will be times when you can't activate, but the 4 times health can definitely make up for that. Next is Yuria, and Yuria has become the best option for enhanced heal orbs for light cards because Kanan from the Shinra Banshiro collab will almost never likely to come back because it's just not going to happen just due to the company shutting down there. So Yuria will be the best option, and it is a strong card because you do have light rows, you do have enhanced heal orbs, you do have movement time, like it's providing the things you want. You can get super follow-up attack, which can be meaningful if you have Bridezeelas potentially, and also depends on the type of team that you're actually using. So she's bringing quite a bit of utility. She has a 5-turn active skill, which can be easily inherited over and provides an okay active skill itself. Like, you do get 3 heal orbs, which can be helpful. It could heal you out of a bad situation, but the idea is she brings lots of utility to the team. And the main drawback is that RCV is somewhat already solved by Tifa, because Tifa provides you with 6 times RCV when you fulfill her leader skill requirements, which is most likely going to be enough, unless you're playing through content where there is tons and tons of or like high RCV debuffs. It may not necessarily be enough. So many players will have more than enough healing capabilities already, so they won't need to actually dedicate an entire subslot to this. Of course, if the meta does change and Tifa somehow falls out of relevance and it becomes other types of teams that are stronger, Yuri will definitely shine bright because right now she will be our best option for healing, but it's kind of like she could be good in the future, but she's not necessarily going to shine as bright right now. And the final 6-star card is Bat. And Bat does a full Awoken, clears 7 turns of binds and Awoken binds, so useful in that sense, and 2-turn delay. It's at least reasonable components to put together. In terms of leader skill, it's not going to happen. It's just too low multipliers with RCV, and it's not even 7x6. If it was 7x6, maybe that could work, but it's not going to happen. So these 3 dark damage reduction awakenings kind of go to waste. 10 combos is only good on 7x6, and you could get a 7 combo, so you have 10 and 7, so you have good offensive capabilities, but like Kenshiro, you want a damaging card that has VDP. If they don't actually pierce that void mechanic, it's not going to be as valuable. So Bat will just definitely be overlooked for other options, and Light is not short of incredibly strong subs. They have so many powerful options, and it's going to be hard, in my opinion, to justify utilizing Bat over any of these other cards. And that is just unfortunate, and it's just the way it is. So there's some value in the 6-star cards, but at the same time, it all depends on what you're actually gunning for. Next is Shin. And Shin is the first of the 5-star cards, and I think they're actually a reasonable card overall because they are our best option for killing physical spawns if you don't have Armored Batman. And Triple Physical Killer is 27 times personal damage for themselves. Great in ranking dungeons, great in farming setups. Only applicable in those situations, really, but being the best at a niche is much better than a generalist because this is exactly what Ray is. They are basically a generalist. They have okay awakenings. They have lowish weighted stats. Their active skill is a low cooldown. Does a bit of something, but the problem is he does a bit of everything. It's going to be a transitional sub. They're not bad in any one aspect, except for the fact that they're not actually good at any one thing in particular. And to a certain extent, you want to be good at one particular thing because in this game, we want to min-max our team composition, so we want to pick the best possible choice all the time, not someone who's, like, say, okay at everything. So I can definitely see Ray being a transitional sub for newer accounts who want to have a reasonable mono water card, reasonable being the key word. And now we're entering some of the bad territory. Judah does 49 fixed damage to a single enemy, 2 dark, 2 wood. Okay. That would have been great when 7 Zard's Dungeon first came out and the Dark Metatron Tamadra, who has a void of 50 or above, was a problem. This can counter it completely. No real other application. This is a mechanic that would have been great 3-4 years ago. It's just horribly outdated. And you can even tank the Dark Metatron Tamadra. It's only 100,000 damage. Like, it just... And even then, it's not even a tough spawn. We have VDP. We just have better leader skills. It's just not relevant. Shu kind of falls in the same category. Their active skill replaces all orbs. That was great when locked orbs were an issue and we had no way to deal with them. We have many ways to deal with them. That's not even a leader skill. Those numbers are like first year pad level. It's kind of magical almost. Their awakenings, yes, they have 10 combo and TPA, but nothing else really. And the TPA value, like their attack stat is not that high. 7x6 is not really popular for wood. They don't bring anything else to the table. Their stats themselves are quite low. It's just not a card you really can find usage for. Next is Thouser, and Thouser was synonymous with the idea that Fist of the North Star was really cool because you had an active skill that had no way to be replicated back then. Their active skill will create a funny looking T of light orbs. Basically, you get a net 10 light orbs. So if used after a full board changer, you have a 20-10 split, which can be easily solved into various patterns for certain combos or compositions, and it can be a meaningful way to farm certain content. Nowadays, we have other cards that have this active skill. We also have double row makers, and double row makers make a perfect 18-12 board, and 18-12 can be solved quite handily as well, and it just might be easier for certain compositions, but the thing is, they've come from farmable options from collabs, which makes Thouser less niche and unique. It's still a valuable active skill to have, but it's just not as magical and unique as it once was. Next is Mamiya, and you don't really do anything. Like, your Awakening's ult, no. 4 fire damage, 4 dark damage reduction, 28% damage reduction, but cheesing is not really the thing nowadays, along with dark cheesing not really being what people do. It's usually cheesing with Kiri because that's much safer by comparison. Next is Juza. So Juza now will start a trend for all the remaining 5 stars because they all have random various offensive awakenings and double co-op boost with up to a single skill boost. So a single skill boost is definitely a drawback because these cards will be used in a co-op setting for button farming. So as a blanket statement, double co-op boost greatly inflates the weighted stats of the cards that own them. So this 2700 attack will be greatly amplified. So when they inherit a button that deals damage based on that card's attack, they'll deal even more damage. It's a great way for farming because buttoning is the fastest way to solve a floor because touch an active skill, it's dead, less animation. Again, this is not necessarily for everyone, but these cards do have 2 co-op boosts and certain ones like Juza have higher weighted attack, so it makes it a more desirable button. So that being said, how valuable they are obviously comes down to how important this buttoning aspect is, and then each individual card is slightly unique. So Juza has a 10-turn cooldown, but they'll provide 2 times attack for light for 4 turns, as well as a 200 times button. So a 200 times button when at 1 health can be meaningful. He can inherit another co-op boost awakening to further amplify his stats to further increase his own button, or inherit a button with a higher multiplier. You have options, but the point is at least he comes ready-made, along with having a higher attack stat. Fudo is not as good. He has much lower weight attack. He has 1,000 less attack. This is a much smaller button. The active skill is also much less meaningful. That is insignificant. You still have the 4 turns of 2 times attack, but less powerful overall. This blue individual, same 10-turn cooldown. That's not an active skill. It's pretty much irrelevant in terms of the button damage. It does provide a little bit of burst for 4 turns, but his attack is also lower, 1858, about 850 less. Much worse. Now we're back up to cards with better attack. Jubei is basically a better wood option to Fudo because the button value is significantly higher and it's a 5, not 10-turn cooldown. This is a big difference because we only get 1 skill boost, which makes it much harder to possibly have your button ready in time. So this is definitely going to possibly open up a bit more capabilities. And then finally we have Shuren, who also has a 5-turn active skill and the highest attack of all the double co-op boost cards in Fist of the North Star collab. This is quite high, so you definitely can button through more content potentially. So I would like him as my better button. And now I feel like I should include this little section here in future videos because I feel like a lot of people have asked me this, and it's good to explain how I feel about this collab from a personal point of view. So I personally don't plan on actually rolling this event due to Raoh only being the real star and the 5-star rarity just being lacking overall. If I had to pick 1 7-star, obviously it's him. For my 6-star card, I would take Yuria because she has the potential to be relevant if we gain light leaders that have high health, low RCB multipliers, and Tifa is not being used. That would definitely be my pick for that future proofing, as well as the fact that the other 6-stars don't bring enough to the table for me to justify them for my monster box. And then for the 5-star cards, I would like Shin because I don't have a triple physical killer. It would be by far my strongest physical killing card, so why not make my box fulfill another niche? So, in conclusion, the Fist of the North Star collab has returned and has given us the glorious Fire Leader Raoh. He is incredibly strong. You want to have duplicates of him, but the rest of the event itself is lacking by comparison. The 5-star cards, especially with many of them being irrelevant as well as being somewhat useless for people who don't play in co-op, makes it much harder to justify the 86% or so chance of actually getting one of them. You don't really want to have many 5-stars. I would want a Shin, and really that's it. It's not like the other events like Samurai Showdown where the 5-star cards are actually quite valuable, where you actually want to collect them. So this makes it less incentive for me to actually want to roll, and it will probably give more incentive for players to actually utilize the monster exchange system because Raoh will only cost 5 trade fodder, and they consist of other 7 stars from this event and 6 star, not 7 star, Godfest exclusives. So, with that being said, let me know what you think about this event in the comments below. Do you think this is worth rolling in, or are you just gung-ho about getting Raoh? Hopefully all a fantastic day. I wish you all the best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.